Everybody ready?
Yeah.
All right, welcome to the February meeting of the Alexander Board of Education. Can we have roll?
Jay.
Here.
Lucy. Here. Aaron.
Yep.
Josh.
Yes.
Blake.
Yes. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll make a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
Second.
Roll.
Jay.
Yes.
Lucy. Yes. Aaron.
Yes.
Josh.
Yes.
Blake.
Yes. Reports, we have superintendent's report.
I've got a few things to talk about. I've got some other things also that aren't listed. First thing, we started talking about access to the ARC last week, and we've been doing a little bit more digging. For me, coming in midstream, not understanding all the history and all the work that went into its development, it's been a learning process. But we have talked about some options, and I know we've had requests for options in the morning, during those morning windows. And if the board desires, we could put together a supplemental where that would be open for a couple of hours before school. We'd have to work with our teachers union on that because that's part of the negotiated agreement. And we could offer it up as a trial basis and see what kind of response we get. If we were to keep it open in that way for a full year, it'd cost us around $6,600. And we could get a good measure as to whether people want that time or not. Now, it also may be reflective of the season. And I think maybe that does play into this some way, because it's easy to go for a walk in May in the morning at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. It's not so easy in January, December, and February. So we should be able to have pretty good understanding of what that response will be if we were to do that for a period of time and evaluate it. Even if we did it for this spring, the turnaround on all this, it'd take about a month. I'd have to get with the teachers union, have the MOU together. They'd have to vote and approve, and if they're on board, we'd put it before the board meeting in the next month, and we'd get it started. So I just know that's something that's come up. It's something that's been talked about in general terms, even in the when it was first being developed, about it possibly being open at other times. But I know we do want to keep it monitored. When you open up a facility unmonitored, you put yourself at a higher liability than you would if you have someone there who can be accountable. So I'll leave that to you. The board can decide, say, well, go do it, and I'll take care of it. Or if you go have some discussion on that, we can go while the time's right and go ahead and talk.
It would also include the weight room, correct?
Yes.
It would be the whole general workout facility, upstairs, downstairs, and the weight room?
Yes.
Okay.
When you say trial basis, do you mean month to month, rest of the year,
I would suggest we do it at least for the remainder of this school year.
school year?
And these times would only be when school is open. And there may be times where it'll be interrupted if we need access to the ARC, especially with some of the state testing that we do. We use the ARC for that, so there may be some times it would be set up and stay and remain that way for the following day. So there may be some limitations here or there, some slight interruptions, but more accessibility than people have had before.
And so that $6,500 to $6,600, that's a yearly cost? That's
That
not
is a
just
full year.
Full year, okay.
The interruptions are no different than what we already see, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it would be nothing out of the ordinary.
Do you believe there is the ability to fill that within a supplemental?
I believe I have some interest.
Okay.
Is this something we or vote and discuss now, or what, under board business?
I'm marking it under board initiated business. Once we get to agenda items, we can make a motion
Okay.
and move it
Okay.
and
You can
adjust
make a
it at
motion.
that.
Yeah, you can make a motion at that point and direct me to go get it together.
Yeah.
Will, what hours are you looking at?
We're looking at 5 to 7.
Okay.
The early morning hours seem to be the ones that are missing in some of this. We still have the late hours. I believe it's open 8 to 10, and we do get a lot of use. That's where it's open. But it's still being utilized by the community during our Biddy League stuff, and because those are our kids. And I consider them, maybe I'm thinking of it in a different way, but I consider when our kids are down there using it, it's outside of a school, the school functions. I see that as our community accessing the Arc.
And with Biddy basketball winding down, is there any thought of moving those hours up in the evening so it's not so late? Or is that make it just work with our janitors or to be able to cover that?
We've altered our janitorial schedule so that we have someone down there for those last 2 hours.
Okay.
I don't know if we could justify having someone down there for a longer period of time,
Yeah.
but maybe we look at sliding them forward. It depends on the use.
Yeah.
Dan Dosick is our AD. He manages the schedule of the Arc and its access.
8 to 10 is pretty late. I know I've had my kids, and I mean, usually they're in bed at 8:30, so it makes
Yeah.
it tough to do anything. And I know with Biddy League, it's almost impossible, and with that wind down, if that would be a possibility to move that up a little bit.
We can look at that.
Especially in the spring.
We got spring sports in there now,
Yeah, spring sports are in there.
but thankfully they don't run as late as the big
Yeah.
league as you're talking about.
Now, in the conversations that happened in the last meeting, in that cost, there was no discussion of, there was cost to talk about, charging $10 a month or something like that.
There were
I
no
personally not-
fees.
Good.
There were
Okay.
no fees entered into that cost.
Okay.
To offset that cost at a reasonable rate for someone to come in and have access to it for a couple of hours in the morning, I don't know what would be a fair charge.
We don't know
but
what the interest
it
is
would-
either, so.
Right. Depending on the interest, it'd be really difficult to make that an even trade to where we didn't lose anything.
Mhm. All right.
All right, the other items I wanted to talk about, and I think they're pretty important, especially the next one, for me is a big deal. Next year, we're going to expand our preschool offerings. We are able to do that for about $18,000, and I think that is a bargain and money very well spent. Right now, we have a waiting list to get into preschool, and if we can make those changes and we can add another 18 kids to our kindergarten classes that are ready to learn, that's going to be tremendous not only for those kids, but for our teachers and the rest of that kindergarten class. It's going to come at a cost, obviously the $18,000, but we're going to have to move some things around in the building to make it work. But it's possible, so we're going to get started on that right away. I met with student council last month, and we talked about student board liaison and what that would look like. And from my conversation, they're going to have elections in May, and we've got a little bit of time to form about what that relationship's going to look like exactly. And my explanation to the student council was it may not begin where you want it to be in the end. So we may take small steps in how this goes. This is new to everyone. It's new to me. It's new to you. So we kind of move in small steps. I think a liaison to the board would be a good thing so that our kids have a connection to the board, and the board has connection to what's happening in the school. I mean, I can communicate things as a middleman, but sometimes it's good to hear from kids and what's happening in their world from their perspective. Substitute bus drivers, this is just a thank you, because as soon as we changed our pay scale on substitute bus drivers, we picked up 2 substitute bus drivers. And so that takes pressure off the rest of our drivers and administrators
And
and
Mr.
others, and Mr. Ford, all those people that have a bus driving license. And if there's anyone in the group, in the audience today that wants to pick up a bus driving license, we can probably put you to work right away. So, but yes, that was just a thank you passed on from Dan Phillips through me, and from me as well. Elementary, next month, the elementary is going to come. Earlier this year, we talked with the high school, and they showcased some of their Science Olympiad work that they're doing. Next month, Miss Rouse will be in, and she'll be talking about some things happening at the elementary level. I'm not exactly sure what she's going to share, but we'll wait for her to bring that to us. And lastly, I just left the booster meeting, the athletic booster meeting, which happens right before our board meeting. One thing that we are struggling with, and I know every other district in the state is struggling with, are volunteers. We really need to encourage our families to volunteer. The backbone of our booster program is built on volunteers. All the work that they do, they generate a significant amount of revenue for our teams, providing support, but also being able to provide that support. They put people in concession stand. They make a better experience for everyone who comes to our games. The more people that we have volunteering, the better experience people are going to have here, the better our experience our kids are going to have as athletes and our coaches. So anything you can do to encourage that, I'm doing that now publicly. I'm hoping that you guys will leave here and do that also publicly because it's really important to the success of our athletic programs.
Thank you. Good?
I'm good.
It's also fun to volunteer.
It is fun. If you've worked in a concession stand, you can have a good time and meet a lot of people.
Or do both.
All right, next we have a special presentation by Molly Fitzgerald and Neil Reynolds on the proposed CRA legislation. If you can step up to the mic, that would be great. Thank you.
Get all those names.
Okay, I'll start out. I'm Neil Reynolds, for those that don't know me, I'm President of the Village Council in the Village of Albany. And Molly, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, Molly Fitzgerald, I'm the director of the Athens County Economic Development Council. I just really want to say thank you for letting us come speak to you tonight. And you have a wonderful library. It's my first time in the library.
Yeah, she was impressed as soon as we walked in. I like that. Okay, so we're here tonight to talk about a program called a community reinvestment area. And the village is in the process right now of setting up a CRA. We've already done a housing study, and all of this is lined in the Ohio Revised Code. I've passed out some handouts for you guys that basically gives you a little bit of a recap on it. But we're still in the infancy of it. For us to move forward, I've been an advocate of growth and economic development for years. And I think that if we do that right, we can be successful with it, obviously. We need to bring residents in. We need to bring businesses in for jobs. Nothing would be greater than for when our children graduate from high school, if they don't want to go to college, they could actually stay around here somewhere and get a good living wage job. So that's what this is all about. Besides, the village is set up, we have utilities, we have a highway, an airport, a railroad, great school system, but we need all the incentives we can get. So this helps. It's a economic development tool that provides property tax exemptions for people that want to invest their money in the village. And the program permits municipalities to designate where the CRA will be. Ours will be inside the whole limits of the village when we get it done. There's still some details to work out on it, and we meet every 2 weeks with another group of people that's helping us facilitate this. So the commissioners are in the midst of doing it. I mean, kind of a heads up, you will see this throughout the unincorporated areas of Athens County as well. But the incorporated places, the villages have to do their own. So that's where we're at on that. So the most important thing to remember about any tax incentive is, how it affects you. And I always like to associate with an acre of ground over here that has nothing on it but grass. So, you draw a little bit of taxes off of it every year, and everything's fine and dandy. But the moment somebody builds a $100,000 house on that piece of property, obviously the value goes way up. So, we always have to keep that in mind. If you think you're giving up something, you're not necessarily. You're gaining something. And as Blake and I were talking earlier, it all pays off down the road, in the end. So there's some confusion with the revised code. Currently, the school board doesn't really have to do anything until we grant an exemption that's over 50% of the assessed increased value. There again, if you put a $20,000 roof on your house, that probably doesn't increase the value of your house a dime, because without the roof, your house isn't going to be worth what it was before. So every improvement's not an automatic tax abatement on it, so, you know, it has to meet certain criteria. There's a board, which, what, 7 people, I believe, in the end, that goes through every one of these applications. I know I'm rambling a little bit there, but the most important part is make you guys aware. And the one handout I gave you, there's basically 5 different segments of a CRA. The first segment deals with residential structures, 1 and 2 family houses. Then it moves up to multifamily housing, be three apartments or more, as what's called multifamily in Ohio. Then there's the remodeling of existing commercial buildings, remodeling of existing industrial facilities, and then the construction of new commercial and industrial facilities. There again, we don't have a whole lot of those around here. RXQ compounding would probably be classified as an industrial building, so if they were to do another major renovation over there, or the one they did a few years ago, they were on a different program, but that would qualify, you know, when they met a certain threshold in dollars, and if it was more than 50% of the increase, then the board's going to be asked to look at that and sign off on it. So, you know, there again, we're working together as a group. It's not, you know, the village is trying to take something away from the school, or the county's trying to take something away from the village, or whatever. You know, it's all got to be, it's a collaborative effort to try to build a community there again, create housing and create jobs. So that's kind of the long and short of it.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit too.
If there's any questions, Molly can answer them. I'm about in the car.
Yeah, so, just so you guys are all aware, you know, I'm here obviously to provide an overview of the CRA program, but also our office, the Economic Development Council, is the entity that collects all of the information and reports to the state on all of the tax abatement programs in the county every year. So if the village, you know, enacts this CRA, our office would be monitoring that on a yearly basis at the Tax Incentive Review Council meeting, which Superintendent Hampton, of course, would be invited to. So I just want to clarify one thing. You know, Neil gave a great overview. The way that the CRA works, it gives the county or the municipality that's enacting it the ability to set specific terms on a case-by-case basis. So it's not like if they were enacting it tomorrow, it's going to be a 70% abatement on all increased assessed property values throughout the city. It would be project by project. So if we had a developer come and say, hey, we're really interested in a 100,000 square foot spec building out at the Carpenter Road land, you know, that might look different. The level of abatement, the term of abatement, that would look different from than a developer coming and saying we're going to build housing units. You know, so certain things need to be taken into consideration. The different types of projects that the village would be considering. Your current tax revenue, nothing changes to that. Okay, this is just on the increased assessed property value. So I always stress to folks that I'm explaining this to, that you hope in the long term it's going to generate more revenue for public services, for our schools. Whatever tax revenue you're getting now is stagnant. That doesn't change. And again, the village sets the term, so it's not going to be an abatement forever. Typically, you see 10 years. Right. The program, per Ohio Revised Code, permits you to abate 100% of that increased property value. For example, similar programs such as the Enterprise Zone Agreement, which is really a tax incentive for a company, not a property owner or a developer. The county commissioners have engaged in several of those over the last, 5-10 years. They will not go above 60% because that is the level that requires school boards to sign off and say, yes, you can go above this level. I've never seen them do that. I can't speak for the village, but
That's not our intention either.
But with a CRA, the max you can go up to before asking for school board approval is 75%. I don't even think you guys are necessarily considering quite that level, but I just want to be transparent and say that the program allows you to debate 100%. You can go to 75% without getting school board approval. Okay. What am I missing?
No, I think you pretty well explained it. And she's right, I didn't explain that, but each CRA, each tax exemption is it's a contract, it's a piece of legislation, actually, that has all the terms. You know, an industrial one or a commercial one might have job requirements on it. You know, it could be a lot of different things. It's whatever the council ends up agreeing on in the end. And the figures that are on the sheet I gave you, like under section A, it says $2,500 approved. I can promise you, I mean, we've been in discussions about this, that number will probably be 10 times that much before.
That would just be a terribly administrative
can't-
burden on the village. If
couldn't
anytime
administer.
someone wanted to do
Yeah.
a $2,500 improvement to their home, that's not gonna fly.
Yeah, so it'd probably be higher, but as Molly said, it's nothing that we have today goes away, you know, it's the future
Mm-hmm.
over the assessed value improvements, so. So it's just like clear as mud to everybody?
Good luck on this. It's an venture, it's an investment. I think it has the ability to pay dividends, not only for the village of Albany, but possibly for the school district as well. So,
Exactly. Like I said before, we have a lot of tools, but we need all the tools we can get, you know, to.
Yeah, one more comment I'll make too is the reason why we even are having these conversations and in this process is because, you know, two struggles we have in Athens County around economic development are a lack of sites. Okay, I can't tell you how many times I get calls from businesses that need a facility to expand and grow the size of their facility and their job numbers, and we just don't have that. And then the other is developers. We really lack developers to do the work, to build the buildings that we need down here. In recent years, our regional economic development partner, Ohio Southeast, has engaged in a lot of initiatives to bolster interest in the Southeast Ohio region for developers to come down here and build. I've had conversations with now 2 of those developers, and both of them have told me, we've had one out to see the
Yeah.
Carpenter Road land to kind of gauge their interest in partnering with the village on a speculative building
Yeah.
that could, you know, house manufacturing jobs, living wage jobs. They say we need it to be zoned industrial manufacturing, and we need to see a CRA. Those are the 2 big things, because it's expensive to build. It's more expensive now than ever, because the Port Authority's building a building right now, and I can tell you the prices have jumped in the last 3 years. But so you have to understand too, like they're looking for whatever incentives they can get to make this possible, because it's expensive for them as well.
We have a lot of people pulling for us, so hopefully keep trudging on.
You got your local champion. He's doing great. Any other questions?
Any questions?
If you don't have any now and you think of them, oh shoot, I'm going to send out my contact information because I don't think it's on any of the materials you received, but I certainly want you all to have that. And if you think of questions later tonight, tomorrow, next week, in a month, please feel free to reach out. I'll make sure you all have that.
thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming and rescheduling, because I know you guys were supposed to be last month, but it's,
That was my fault.
oh,
I had the stomach bug because I have a little child who brings home everything. That's my fault.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do you have any public participation sign up? I don't think I saw anybody. Thank you, Molly.
Thank you.
No? All right. So we have the consent agenda. Anything need to be removed for discussion? We look for a motion.
Made.
Second. Roll.
Jay,
Yes.
Lucy,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Blake.
Yes. Items for board approval. It's recommended the Board of Education employ the following for the 2022-23 school year pending their meeting all state and local requirements. We have Karen Stewart, paraprofessional, effective January 20th, 2023, and Kelsey Williams, paraprofessional, effective January 30th, 2023.
Moved.
Seconded.
Discussion. These are replacement positions? Yep. Roll.
Jay,
Yes.
Lucy,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Blake.
Yes. Welcome. Business initiated by board members. I will make a motion to authorize Mr. Hampton to start the process of looking what a MOU would look like for a 2-hour supplemental in the morning to the end of the year for access to the ARC.
Or for a whole year. He had spoken about it as a whole year.
I think we should to the end of the school year. And then, I mean, we can adjust the motion if people want to, but my motion is to make a supplemental to the end of the school year, and we will reevaluate at that time, see what the actual use and everything is.
What have we been doing about summer usage in the past?
Well,
Summer use, there's a window during the day. and
it's usually 1 to 3, I
it's
think
1
this
to
is.
3.
Okay.
And again, that's based on having the ability to have a custodian in the ARC for 2 hours in the afternoon.
So,
Okay, would that continue over the summer? So if we let this sunset at the end
We
of
would
the
still
school
have
year,
that 1 to 3.
we would continue that on, and we're still continuing the evening hours.
Well,
This
we-
is just
No, that's right.
5 through to 7.
just to reiterate, the motion is that we can, that's just to move it to the floor, and we can discuss, amend all we want.
Oh, so we should hold discussion until we.
Yeah. So my motion is to authorize Mr. Hampton to take on creating an MOU that creates a supplemental for a 2-hour position for access to the ARC to the community from 5 to 7 a.m. when available, of course, to the end of the school year.
I'll second it to get discussion started.
Okay,
officially.
discussion.
Now, Jay.
Okay, so this is just a supplemental position to keep the ARC access open 5 to 7 a.m. till the end of the school year.
But it could be for the whole year in the morning.
Well, but Blake said, try it.
Yeah.
In his, okay.
My motion, and we can
Initially,
amend
right.
it, we can amend it
Right.
in the middle of this, but my motion is to just do it to the end of the school year.
Right.
And I'm
But-
fine with, sorry, Jay, go ahead.
No, but if we do nothing at the end of the school year, I'm just asking, is it still open for summer, or do we have to act again?
We would have to act, because at that venture, I'm not sure, I would have to look at the contract. I don't know, supplementals would go beyond the 183 days.
I'm not saying the 5 to 7 time slot, but would it be open for community
other-
hours during the summer without?
Yes, as it normally was this past summer,
It doesn't affect.
for the 2 hours. This is just an additional 2 hours
In the
in
morning.
the morning, because right now with everything in winter sports taking over, the community hours got pushed back to an inconvenient 8 to 10 p.m.
Okay. I'd rather see it, at least try it for a year, but that's my own opinion, because what do we got, 3 months of school left? March, April, May? I mean, and you're not getting the full representation of the school year, you're just getting a very small window to judge.
And I go, yeah, is that your point?
That was my
Yeah.
point, I
'cause
just want to
go
see it a
back-
year.
Yeah, I go back and forth. The thing, we can always authorize it, and if there isn't use, it can be done or whatever. But the thing is, if someone, and we can authorize it for a couple extra hours of community use during in the summer, it might be, instead of 5 to 7, it could be a couple hours at some other time. I do think that,
In the
if
summer-
someone's,
In the summer, it's gonna be almost, I don't know of someone who would be willing to come in the summer hours.
that's
I have
another
a
thing,
teacher-
yeah.
I have a teacher
Yeah.
who has said that they would be interested if it were available for the morning during the school year.
Yeah,
The conversation never went to the summer.
Yeah.
And what that would look like.
and it might be hard to get someone if they have to commit to the whole year. Another thing is, though, if someone works out and they have a schedule, they work during the day, no matter, in the summer, they're still gonna wanna come in the morning and work out before their work. So, I'm just thinking about all different sides. Yes?
You know, when the weather gets really good, if you come out here in the morning, you see a whole bunch of people walking the track. That's not gonna happen anymore. Right? So we,
A little while,
so people
yeah.
are gonna be probably maybe walking inside the arc now, since they can't walk out the
Yeah.
track.
Or the back way, that,
Or,
the
yeah.
nature trail.
Most people, they walk around the track.
Yeah,
There's a bunch, when the weather gets nice, to do that. They bring the little kids out and all that stuff. Older people walk around the track, and they keep on doing that during the summer. And especially during the summer, they come out here early before it
because
gets
of the
hot.
heat.
So, once again, they're gonna want early in the morning, even during the summer, that way, 1 to 3 or something like that's probably not gonna work to get a 1 to 3 in the afternoon. I think that's what it was, wasn't it, 1 to 3?
I think it was 1 to 3. I'm pretty sure the summer was 1 to 3.
1 to 3, yeah,
The plan at the moment is to continue with that time slot.
right.
I just think the likelihood you'll find a teacher willing to come in the summer from 5 to 7 in the mornings is probably going to be slim.
Can we authorize you to break it up?
Can't we
That's-
sign waivers like that legally absolves the school from anything if the individual is?
Will you, Mark's pointing, can you step up to the mic for us, please?
Thanks for letting me speak real quick. First off, I think this should have been handled before the building was ever even constructed, a plan put in place. The one thing I've had, and I've seen, lived here, grew up my whole life, I've seen divide this school and this community is this building and then the last couple years. It was marketed through a levy as a community center. And I'm all about athletics. They taught me some of the greatest lessons I ever learned to deal with my birth defect and everything that it has brought my way in life and struggle. So I'm not downing athletics, but that was designed as a community center. So the community should have as much access as possible. Whatever can be done to give the community access. Another thing you see in this community is low socioeconomic status and obesity. And as we learned from the last few years, what was the major thing that we had a lot of trouble with this last pandemic? People that are obese. This is an arc, right? Well, then let's use it as that to bridge this community and this school, because it is shattered like nothing I've never seen. The relationship, this community with this school, and it hurts. It hurts to see something that I've loved so much and grew up in this area and see this division. I think we can all work together on this, but if there's ways to sign a waiver, you know, our tax, over 50% of our tax dollars paid for the building. Okay, we'll forget about that, but even if we had to pay a $10 a month to use it, to use those funds, if there's got to be someone there. I know this, when I worked out down there was cameras everywhere. So right there is the eye that can keep a whole, an access card that tells you who's in and out of there, what time, the cameras. I don't see if a waiver is signed absolving the school of all legal liability, what the issue is. And someone said, well, maybe they don't want a group. What if it gets up to 100 people wanting to work out there? I say that's great, because that's more community members coming together, bettering themselves physically and mentally. And kids, they model by what they see, by not what we talk about. A great example, one of my best friends in the last year, he's lost over 130 pounds, Richard Hickson. A couple weeks ago, his daughter's down there working out with him. Why? Because that's her daddy showing her, being a model. And I see this arc as a way to bring the community together, not dividing it. And I hope we can all work together and do just that. So, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
bet.
He's one of the ones who could be there working out early. And someone else I know.
So,
Sorry, Blake.
go ahead.
Just to tag on to what Lucy said right before that, can we, rather than litigating it to death of figuring out what hours, where, when, and how, can we just authorize ask Will to look for
Yeah.
the plan that he's going to develop and say, add 2 hours, and let's see what the recommendations are, since we know.
For up to a year.
We know we won't be doing this until next month. Won't be able to just because of the MOU, but I like the idea. I think we all said we like the idea of adding hours. Maybe let's let the guy that
his
is supposed
thing.
to do his thing.
All right.
And see if you can find someone in the summer.
So I guess essentially you're asking to amend the motion to remove all time restrictions and just authorize Will to create a supplemental for the additional access to the ARC.
I wasn't
For up
going
to a
that
year.
far, but if that's what we want to do, that's fine. I was was just looking for add 2 hours and tell us when it makes sense to add it.
Okay. For up to,
for a year. And it might be one or more supplementals. I don't know if you're gonna have to get
It may be-
someone else.
It may be split.
Yeah. So it's basically what you talked about. You got it, Blake?
I'm writing it down now.
Is that amenable to you guys, or would you rather just release the beast and just come back with whatever access plan you feel like?
No, I mean, I think that the 2 hours, I mean, I'm not sold on 5 to 7, but that does fit nicely into before school hours. I just think we need to do something to let the public know that, and have a consistency somewhere, because it was marketed as community use, and like it or not, I mean, I still think we're a community that follows up with what we committed to, and the board needs to commit to a supplemental position for at least a couple hours to guarantee that community access. So, yeah, I think, and we ought to do it for a year, just so that there's no turmoil and guesswork in the community as to, well, it's only gonna be good for 2 months possibly, so I'm not gonna go start working out if they're gonna yank the rug out from under me. So, yeah, I think doing it and giving Will the flexibility for time, and as long as, you know, give him a couple hours a day, but give him a length of time to work at it too. So, yeah, I like that. I think it works.
Okay, so then I'm gonna make a motion to amend the original motion to authorize Mr. Hampton to take action to create a supplemental position for an additional 2 hours of community access for up to 1 year.
2 hours a day.
2 hours a day. For up to 1 year.
I'll second.
We'll revisit it
Second.
back in March next year.
Cool. Other discussion?
Good deal.
Okay, so now this is where the rules of order get a little weird. We have to first vote on, just to be clear, we have to first vote on the, making the amendment, and then we actually vote on the motion.
The whole
Okay,
new
so we,
motion. Okay.
the first thing is to vote on the amendment taking place. Roll.
Jay,
Yes.
Lucy,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Blake.
Yes. Now, the actual vote to put that motion into action.
Jay,
Yes.
Lucy,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Blake.
Yes. Okay, you've got your job. All right. Board reports. Public participation on non-agenda items. And we do not have an executive session, and so the next scheduled meeting is Wednesday, March 8th, 2023 at 7 PM. February makes it easy.
Yeah.
28 days. All right.
I'll make it. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Jay,
Yes.
Lucy,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes, please.
Blake.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.